Kelsey Fisher.
Here.
Christine Morales.
Here.
Lynette Pettibone.
Here.
Meredith Mance.
Here.
And I'm Meredith Klein, and I'm here.
And Wendy Smith. And Wendy Smith is currently
We're
absent.
waiting on Wendy Smith.
Yes.
Okay. So number 2 is items for board action, which is the approval of the agenda.
This is Kelsey Fisher, and I move to approve the agenda. This is Christine Morales, and I second that.
So a motion has been made. I'll call the roll. Is that correct?
Correct.
For us to approve the agenda. Okay, Beth Iva.
Aye.
Chelsea.
Aye.
Kelsey Fisher. Christine Morales.
Aye.
Lynette Pettibone.
Aye.
Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Meredith Klein. Aye.
Excellent.
So number 3 is introduction. Oh, do I say?
Nope, you're good. You're good. Keep going.
The motion passes. Okay. Well, number 3 is to introduce Meredith Mance, our newest member. So, what's the protocol for doing that?
Well, this is Sylvie. Normally, you're all in the office can visually see each other, so this is a little awkward.
Right.
But Meredith Mance, if you want to, not everybody necessarily on the board nor here in the office knows who you are nor has seen you. So if you want to give everybody a little bit of your background and who you are and what got you interested in the board, and then we can go around with board members and they can introduce themselves to you. So go ahead, Meredith Mance.
Awesome. I'm Meredith Mance. I am a licensed direct entry midwife and CPM in McMinnville, Oregon. I am the co-owner of Wilder Midwifery and am also an IBCLC lactation consultant. I am very excited to get started on the board. I moved to Oregon about 2 years ago and have always been very drawn to kind of the legislative side of things and making sure that our profession stays kind of protected and safe in what we do. And it was really important to me to kind of add a new voice to the board.
Excellent. Thank you. So Meredith Klein, you want to kind of introduce yourself to her?
Well, I'm Meredith Klein, and I know her. We both live in McMinnville, and we actually share an office.
Oh, perfect. That's even better. So, Beth, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Meredith. My name is Beth Iva, and I'm the community member. I am an attorney, and I live in Eugene, Oregon. I have 2 kids. They're 13 and 11, and they both were born at home with a midwife, one of them up in Portland and one of them here in Eugene. And this is my 2nd term on the board, which I think means I've been on the board for 4 years. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Kelsey, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Kelsey Fisher. I'm a midwife in Portland at Bridgetown Midwifery. I am just wrapping up my 1st term on the board, so I've been here 3 years. And I'm very excited to have another licensed midwife. It's nice that we have 4 of us, as intended. So that's great. Welcome, Meredith.
Thank you.
And Lynette?
Hi, my name is Lynette Pettibone, and I am a midwife in Portland Metro as well as Vancouver, Washington. I'm licensed in Washington as well, and I've just been on the board a few months ahead of you, learning the ropes as well. And I've been licensed in both states for about 4 years now.
And Christine?
Hi, I'm Christine Morales. I'm a certified nurse midwife at Salem Hospital. I've been on the board for, 6 months it seems like, and I've been a midwife for about 11 years. So welcome.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, and then Christine Mance, or Meredith Mance, just so you know, Wendy Smith, who obviously is not on the phone, she's in, an OBGYN up in Portland area. Legacy Emmanuel? Yeah, so hopefully she'll come on later. So we are getting ready to go to item number 5, which is the executive session, and I just want to double check that everybody has the other phone number to log in and understands this process. So Meredith Mance, this is going to be new to you, so hopefully Sammy's kind of gone over this with you. We're going to leave this phone we'll leave it on because the public is allowed to call into this, and we do know there's a couple people who want to make some public comment. That's the reason for the new agenda. So we're going to leave this phone on, but then and then we here in the office are physically going to walk to a different room, to a different phone. We will log into that phone, and all of you need to log into that phone. I'll make sure that everybody gets logged in before we move forward, and then we'll start executive session. And then when we're done with that, everybody will hang up from that number and then call back into this number. Is there any questions on this process? Okay, so Meredith Klein, I gotta get used to saying your guys' last names. Can you read your script for the executive session, please?
The Board of Direct Entry Midwifery will now be in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602F and ORS 676.595 for the purpose of considering information related to investigative cases exempt from public disclosure at 8:15 on July 16, 2020. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are required to leave the room. Are there any representatives of the news media in the audience?
No.
No. Recognizing that there is no news media in attendance, all other audience members are asked to leave the room during the executive session. We will return to open session before taking any final action or making any final decisions.
Okay, Maria, you ready? Recording's going. Go ahead and read your script for the reconvening.
The Board of Direct Entry Midwifery will now exit executive session and reconvene open session at 10:04 a.m. No final decisions were made and no votes in executive session. Members of the audience are welcome to return, and representatives of the media may once again report all board discussions and actions. Is that Wendy? Did she just come in? No, this is Celeste.
Celeste.
She needs 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, hi.
When you need 5 minutes.
So Wendy has responded. She will log back on in about 5 minutes, so we can just continue on.
Okay.
So this is Sylvie. We are now on item number 7 on the agenda, which is items for board action.
So this is Kelsey Fisher, and I move that in case number 20-9677 that we open an investigation.
This is Christine. I second.
Motion has been made. I'll call the roll. Beth Iva.
Yes.
Kelsey Fisher.
Aye.
We just did, right? Okay. Christine Morales.
Aye.
Lynette Pettibone.
Aye.
Meredith Smith. Aye. And Meredith Klein. Aye.
Excellent. Okay, so this is Sylvia again. We are on item number 8. Meredith Klein, you should have a script there for public interested parties feedback.
At this time, the Board of Direct Entry Midwifery will hear public interested party feedback. Members of the audience, please wait until you've been recognized by the chair. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the board for the record. Not sure how I can recognize people.
I know,
without-
it's gonna be, it's gonna be hard. So this is Sylvie. I know that we have 3 individuals who are on the phone as public members, or as public interested parties. And so I will read off their name and they can say whether or not they would like to make a comment or not. If I read off your name, please obviously say your full name and then whatever it is you would like to talk about. Oh, somebody just beeped in. Did somebody just join us? Either somebody joined us or somebody logged off. So we do have Celeste, Tia, and Hermine on the phone. We're going to go with Hermine first. Would you like to make a public comment at this time?
Oh, yes, I would. Thank you. Hang on, let me just grab my headset. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Hermine Hayes-Klein, and I'm calling in to make a public comment on behalf of the Oregon Association of Birth Centers. Thank you for this opportunity. The Oregon Association of Birth Centers would like to object to the addition of additional language in OAR 332, 025, 021, 16A and B, and 17A and B that would require direct entry midwives to consult with a physician who provides cesarean delivery in order to support women in the decision for VBAC, twins, or breech birth with a direct entry midwife. Although Oregon birth centers cannot offer twins or breech births, the problem with the inclusion of this language requiring a consult with a physician who does offer C-sections applies to both rules. This rule would require direct entry midwives to consult with a provider who does not themselves offer the service that is being consulted on, namely physiological VBAC, twins, or breech delivery. They almost certainly do not have the skills to offer truly physiologic breech birth support, let alone with breech or twins deliveries, and may have never even seen such a delivery before, let alone in an out-of-hospital setting. The major reason why women need to seek out-of-hospital support for physiological birth support for VBAC, twins, and breech is that those services are rarely, if ever, offered in hospital spaces at this time. What physicians usually offer women in cases of multiple prior cesarean, breech, and twins in hospital spaces is cesarean delivery. Given that most Oregon physicians lack experience and skills in complex physiological births and do not offer this service, what does the board expect that the doctor's counsel would be in these mandated consultations? It is to be expected that the doctor would strongly recommend against out-of-hospital birth in any of these cases, given that they don't even support vaginal birth in hospitals for these same conditions. This new rule would then require the midwife to chart the doctor's recommendations. Even if the birthing person decides to proceed with a direct entry midwife following informed consent on the consult, that chart note increases legal risk for the midwife and any organization that employs it. If one of the risks of the client's decision for a physiological birth outside the hospital manifests and a bad outcome occurs, the doctor's note is likely to be offered in evidence against the midwife in any legal action against her. Both the addition of this rule and the fact that a doctor's opinion could be used to punish a midwife for supporting a woman's informed choice are a reflection of the power that medicine has historically held and still holds over midwifery in the United States. We are all aware of the ongoing anti-competitive behavior that midwives in Oregon face from many physicians and hospitals, especially direct entry midwives. Until integration and collaboration has been advanced, a rule like this does nothing but enforce the power of physicians over the practice of midwifery and the ability of women to access midwives. We would not ask a physician to consult with a direct entry midwife in order to provide a service to a client. And the fact that that idea is ludicrous reflects the inequality and the power imbalance that is underlying this rule. If we're going to have a rule that requires midwives and their clients to consult with doctors who provide cesarean delivery in order for those midwives to offer physiological birth support, then it would make equal sense to require doctors who want to offer a planned C-section to require their
clients to go and consult with or for the doctor themselves to consult with a midwife. But we don't mandate that in the law because that's not how we advance integration and collaboration. Although this board might have, certainly has all the best intentions to advance dialogue and consultation and collaboration between doctors and midwives, mandating it through a rule like this is going to do nothing but increase legal risks for the direct entry midwives while it restricts and undermines access to these services for the public. Thank you very much for accepting my comment.
Thank you. Tia, did you want to make a public comment? Tia, if you're still on the phone, your phone might be on mute. Maybe Tia's not hung up. Okay, let's go with Celeste. Celeste, did you want to make a comment?
Yes, thank you so much. This is Celeste Kersey, and I'm the president of the Oregon Midwifery Council and representing the Oregon Midwifery Council this morning. Hermine spoke brilliantly and directly and exactly what Oregon Midwifery Council would like to say about the councils. And I just want to, again, sort of exhaustively say that we are professionals who care deeply about the safety of our clients. And I am happy to consult with people when I need help, when it's beyond my expertise about something. But just as Hermine said, there is usually not expertise in one or two C-sections without a previous vaginal birth where physiologic birth is offered by physicians in the hospital. So there's some confusion I have about that, why that would make sense. I get that women should know all their options and that birthing people need to understand the risk that is inherent in birth, and then maybe a slighter, definitely a slighter risk to doing a VBAC after one or two C-sections at home. And that is the job that we have, is to provide informed choice as professional midwives and to take responsibility for that happening. So to have an oversight by a physician who doesn't understand what we do, who is, as Janine pointed out, absolutely certainly going to say that home birth is dangerous or unadvisable in this situation. It doesn't make sense to me, and I would want a lot more clarity on what it is you're looking for and how we would show that to have happened. Is that a consult? If this is left in the bill, in the rule, does the client have to go talk to a doctor? Do we talk to a doctor? What is it that you want to come out of this? So the other piece of that is I currently have a double VBAC a double cesarean in my care. And I have consulted with Linda Glenn because she has a few other things that I wanted to be sure I was being really safe about and get Linda's opinion on. And I trust that a great deal because she understands home birth and she also respects me. And so she could say very clearly, I don't recommend a home delivery, and I could say thank you. And then we could talk about what things I could do to make it even safer for the client. So she does not do C-sections, but she was an excellent consult for me. So again, OMC and the midwives in Oregon feel strongly that this should not be a consult situation. And if indeed it's kept in, please allow a great deal of clarity on expectations around this. Thank you very much for taking my comment.
Thank you, Celeste. Tia, are you still there? Silence. Tia, if you are there, your phone's on mute. Is there anybody else from the public who is on the phone? Okay. Well, then that wraps it up. We are going to move on to item number 9, So board members, we're going to be in your packet. You will have, oh, somebody just logged in. Who just logged in? Or we lost somebody. All right, I'm going to do a quick roll call of board members. Meredith Klein, you still on the phone?
Yes.
Wendy Smith? Beth Iva?
Yes.
Kelsey Fisher?
Yes.
Meredith Mance?
Yes.
Lynette Pettibone?
Yes.
And Christine Morales?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to move on. So everybody except for Wendy is on the phone. We are in your packets right behind where it says, oh, so we're still on public comment. I take that back. So there are 2 public comments that were added to your materials. One came in from a Deanna Short, and the other came in from a Melissa Cochran. Has everybody had a chance to read those 2 emails?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so those are also part of the public comment. So those are in the materials, and those will be posted to the web along with the recording from both the Hermione and Celeste making their comment. So then we will move on to the administrative rule review. The first thing you have there is the calendar, which kind of shows where we're at in the process. So today, July 16th, is the board meeting where we will adopt proposed rules. And then the notice of the rules will go out and the public comment starts. So public comment will be pretty much all of August up until August 28th, which will be the last day for public comment. Then you guys at your September 24th board meeting will adopt permanent rules. After that is the rules as of all the changes that you have made, and that's where you guys will have your conversations. Sammy has tried to highlight in that reddish pinkish color whatever there's a number change, so it's easy to keep track of what category you're in. But now you guys can have that conversation about the rules. Oh, sorry, before we move that far forward. The very first one in her rules is to delete the rule regarding the MANAStats. So Sammy, you want to give a little update on that?
Yes, I had a conference call with Missy Chaney yesterday. And she kind of verbally gave me some recommendations and kind of some insight on where she believes MANA is at, and then where how we can close the gap where it's possible, and then how we can potentially move forward in the short term future and then in the long term future. So she had been with MANA in the MANAStats project area as the main researcher, and Oregon State University was the main research hub. Her and many others in that department left MANA. So at this point, they have appointed a new interim director who doesn't have a research background, but they're still recruiting for somebody new. So at this point, all the data that is going in won't be necessarily coming out clean. There won't be anyone to do quality control, anything like this. And kind of functionally, MANA as a whole program has been kind of turned upside down. So the trickle down for the MANAStats project to get back up and running could be many, many, many years down the road, because they have some more functional things at the higher level of the big organization. And so what we were thinking going forward is, so take this out, since we don't really know what's going to happen with the data as it goes in. There would be really no way of ensuring that the data, bad data in, bad data out. There's no quality control. We would have a hard time utilizing it. Plus, we don't aggregate the data for just Oregon. That doesn't happen. If OMC wants to get the information, they can, get the information from MANA. We have never done it. They don't normally give it to regulatory bodies. In fact, it's never been done. So as far as a state agency, we could never get the information. And Vital Records has done a really good job over the last 10 years of advancing how information goes into their database, what type of information we're collecting, and then making sure that the Vital Records clerks, birth clerks, whatever they're called, is actually asking the appropriate questions. Was this an intended home birth? Was it transferred? And then based on all of that information, we can get a pretty good snapshot of what's happening in Oregon just based on our Vital Records. So that's kind of short term. She also recommended that if we went that route, to do it every 2 years, just do an analysis on what that looks like, because let's see, we're probably just going to be getting the 2019, they might not even be published yet, I haven't checked, for the 2019 stuff, we're almost kind of a year behind, and then do just a brief analysis on what information is publicly available, and then hopefully long-term, MANAStats data project would get back up and running, but there has been some success with a group which includes the American Association of Birth Centers, the American College of Nurse Midwives, and the National Association for Certified Professional Midwives, where they all got together so that in hopes that all midwives could potentially report to one body. So it would be a separate data set for MANA. And they did do a white paper, but there was kind of nobody to apply for a grant or do the structure of a grant. But there still has been some teeth behind it and getting some footing kind of nationally at the legislative level. So I'll be kind of monitoring that to see where that goes. And then Missy has offered her help in any way going forward that she can offer. So that's it.
Anybody have any questions, comments, concerns for Sammy regarding deleting the requirement for individuals to enter their MANAStats for renewal?
Is this something that we would have to... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lynette.
Oh, go ahead. It's fine. Either one can go first. I just wanted to... I'm also a member of MAWS, which is the Washington organization, concurrent to OMC. And MAWS is moving forward trying to pair with the PDR, which is the alternative that Sammy mentioned. And client care is one of the main EMRs that is used among midwives, and there have been conversations with client care helping to integrate that as well with their products. Another option that Washington has looked into is there's an organization called OB-COPE, which is the OB hospital body that's very similar. And our data has been included with that data set for a little while now. And so they're looking into whether or not that makes any sense to continue to use that data set. So I guess my point is I do agree that we should potentially remove the MANA. I have concerns about birth certificate data. It is typically not great data. And I would prefer to see one of the other options used.
This is Kelsey, and I think that historically birth certificate data has not been great, but that our birth certificate data is pretty great because we have questions specifically about where people plan to give birth when they're still pregnant. And so we can look at things from an intention to treat model, which is a little different than a lot of the birth certificate data across the U.S. But I would be open to looking into some of these other programs as well for data collection. And I guess just my question was, do we have to vote to open these set of rules so that we can change them since we were just looking in Division 25?
We don't have to, that's just as an option.
So this is Sylvia. Are you questioning whether or not we have to do, whether or not there's something we need to do before we can even open Division 20?
Yeah, I was just curious where we were at, or if we could just agree to this today.
So this is Sylvie. So you can, for one, if you all agree, then you can agree to it today. Today is the proposed rules. So today would be, we're proposing to delete this, and then the public comment starts, and then you can have to, listen to all the public comment, and then you have to vote permanent. So today is just a proposal.
Missy did say that nationally, the vital records data has been pretty unreliable, but the Oregon data, as far as reliability, when they're scaling it on a national level, that Oregon is very high in the reliability of data, if that's helpful.
This is Meredith Mance. I just wanted to make a quick comment about PDR, if we were to use that as an alternative, that there is a subscription fee for that for non-American Association of Birth Center members. So we'd be talking about full birth midwives essentially having to pay $700 a year for that annual subscription. So I just want to make sure that that's publicly known, too, if we're talking about moving in this direction.
Meredith, just to reply to that, you can get a subscription for less than that. It's $200 a year for an individual. But yes, potentially. Although I think that AABC is talking about ways to mitigate that. It should people in states that use that decide to switch over. Okay.
So this is Sylvia. I'm listening to you guys talk, I think on maybe, I don't know if we're ready to yet, but maybe on towards the beginning of the year, January-ish, we'll get it on the agenda to start specifically talking about different groups that supply different data, and so I don't want this issue to go away, so that's where I think if we flag it toward January, that will force us then to start talking about all the different options, what's out there, what's working, what's not, and then maybe we might know a little bit more about MANA status and what they're doing. Missy might have some more information. Sammy keeps in contact with Missy, so does everybody feel comfortable with having that on the January agenda, and then we can start working on that next year?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Perfect. So does anybody have, board member wise, any of you board members have issues with deleting the MANA reporting requirements rule?
So not deleting it. Taking it off.
So we're going to propose to delete it. So again, you'll have public comment. So let's move on to the risk assessment practice standards. So that is Division 25. And remember, bold is new. So, Sammy, if you want to start off on number 9, you've changed. You need to update your ABC thing, but.
What in the heck is going on? Oh, something's not right here. Well, okay, anyway.
So does everybody see where we're at? So number 9, indication for transfer pre-existing and historic conditions. You have recommended deleting active cancer and then deleting active or chronic and use the word chronic.
It's not right here.
So are you asking us if anyone has an objection to that?
Oh, this is what you guys came to at last time. So if you guys want to talk about any changes, things that you do or don't like that you want to change now, if you don't, then we just move on and you guys vote. But now would be the time to talk about it, whether or not you want to change something based on anybody's comments.
I'm fine with that. This is Meredith Klein. I don't know about anyone else.
So the way Sammy has emailed... Go ahead, sorry.
This is one that I'm just wondering, are we planning to go through this again line by line and approve changes? Or are we just asking like the general question? Do you see anything that we should have a conversation about? How is this working?
Sorry, Lynette. Go ahead.
Yeah, the plan for today was that we've already talked about all of these, and so ideally today we agree to all of it and we vote to adopt it as proposed rules.
And should we take into consideration the new public comment?
Yes, absolutely.
So that would be my proposal, is that we do that now, have a conversation about that.
So this is Sylvia. What specifically would you like to have a conversation about?
Well, I came into this midway.
No, you're
so,
fine.
I'm trying to remember the conversation that was had about including those consults, specifically for the VBAC consult. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I think Wendy was actually the one that had most of the feedback on it.
Wendy
is back on.
Wendy's back on now, so she's listening. So Wendy, sorry, I'm going to get Wendy up to speed real quick. So Wendy, we are on the rule review. So we are currently in your packet reviewing the proposed rules that Sammy sent to you. We've already discussed, and so if you have questions, let me know, but we've already discussed removing the reporting requirements for MANAStats due to some issues and concerns with MANA. So now we're on practice standards. And you did miss, and so you're welcome to ask the other board members questions about it, but you did miss the public comment. So we had 2 public comments, one from Hermine and one from Celeste. Both, and the board members can fill you in more detail. Both of them had concerns with adding in that a consult for the cesareans, VBAC after cesarean, the consult must be with a physician who provides cesarean delivery. But right now, everybody's on the topic of the current rules as Sammy had sent you. So Lynette, go forward. Okay, so Lynette, go back to what you were saying.
I was just saying that I couldn't remember the specifics of the conversation around that change, adding the consultation by a provider who does cesarean sections, specifically in regards to the VBAC rules. And I was hoping to be reminded of that in light of the public comment, which was opposing it.
So Kelsey, do you remember, I think both Kelsey and Wendy, I think because it was back when Colleen was still on the board, so I think Kelsey and Wendy both should be able to help you. Maybe Kelsey, if you could do like a recap for Lynette on how the rule stuff went, the rule voting, the pass fail, and how we had to pull out the little sections, that might be helpful for her.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of recap. I mean, I don't know
do it,
how much of that. I don't know if I remember exactly how all of that went, but the last time that the rules were open and we had a draft, we were a bit contentious about some of them, and we didn't all necessarily agree. So we took out all the contentious parts, which was VBAC, breech, and twins, and we voted on them separately, and they didn't pass. We had plans to remove a lot of them, so the rules became more restrictive. But then when we voted, enough people have changed their minds about that they didn't pass, and so then we were kind of stuck with having approved some of the rules and some of them kind of hanging in limbo because they didn't pass. And so we just re-adopted the previous language that the old rules had. And so then this year we reopened it so that we could actually craft new language around those particular topics, the VBAC, breech, and twins, so that we could sort of update them to make more sense. And so that's sort of where we are, is that we're just trying to find agreement on all of those higher risk indications and how to handle them. And as far as specifically the consults requiring a particular person, I think that the concern was that we don't have jurisdiction over exactly what people put into their informed consent as far as specific risks of things. And so the idea is that for anyone who is interested in having VBAC or breach or twins at home, that they get information from the other side, so they know that a hospital birth, including a planned cesarean, is an option, and that it's a way to ensure that people understand the risks of both choosing a planned cesarean or pursuing an out-of-hospital birth.
And did the board in place at the time discuss, how that might limit access?
We have had some discussions around that, and I think that the main thing was that the consult doesn't have to necessarily be in your community, so you can consult with anyone across the state, and so that can help access, because there's some places where the OBs just won't consult with midwives in the state, and so not requiring it to be an in-person consultation was an attempt to improve access. And there's already a requirement to consult for those, so we were just changing it to make sure that the person choosing to have a home VBAC or breech or twins has had all of the information from all of their options and alternatives.
And this is Wendy, and so is there a question about the rationale for having the consult with somebody that actually does the procedure?
One of the concerns, some of the concerns expressed in public comment was that by being forced to consult with a physician, that the physician would obviously say, like, this isn't safe and you shouldn't do it. And then the midwife having to chart that would be a liability for the midwife if anything goes wrong.
That's not fair. Wendy, but that's not a fair statement, and that's very closed-minded and inaccurate. A PARQ is not an opinion. A PARQ is relating facts around risk. And how do you relate facts around risks if you don't do the procedure?
Sure. I'm just trying to relay what was expressed in the public comments. And I feel like I don't see how it increases risk. And if people want to submit public comment with any evidence based on that, I would love to see that if there is an evidence base. Because my understanding is that the clearer you are about the risk with the client, then that makes it a better informed choice.
Absolutely.
So that's my perspective and that's my understanding, and that's why I feel comfortable with having the requirement that the consult be with a physician who does the area. I'm sorry about my dog. I feel like it definitely makes sense if somebody's had 2 or 3 cesareans. I'm not sure that it makes as much sense to have to consult for everyone who just had 1 cesarean, because there's so many different indications for that, and
right, but that's our rule right now is just 3 or 2, right?
No, it's that if someone has had 1 or 2 cesareans without a successful vaginal birth, you have to consult with the physician.
Right, and so This is Wendy. I think the reason for that, and it wasn't necessarily just as you said, Kelsey, an in-person consult. It could have also been. It could be the midwife consulting with a physician and relaying the facts, right? We had decided that was acceptable, maybe not ideal, but acceptable.
Yeah, they're definitely how we've defined consult, is that it can be a phone call and then the midwife relays the information.
And the rationale, again, just to kind of highlight it, is that
every DDAC is not the same, and it takes, in my opinion, it takes a person who does the procedure the ability to think about each of the reasons why this person had a C-section to begin with, because I think we have seen enough people with red flags that have not been relayed clearly to the patient about why they may or may not be as good of a candidate as somebody who had a C-section for breech. I mean, it happens all the time, and I think until you do the procedure in each situation, it's very hard sometimes to have that base of knowledge regarding a lot of individual patients. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And we have, as much as we see this in the past. We have seen a woman who has had multiple other factors that weighed into the event that were not considered adequately, right? And I fear that.
Yeah, and I just want to take a step back and remember that the purpose of the board is to protect what's in the public interest. And so for me, that really means balancing what's safe with with autonomy. And so I feel like the way that we've crafted the rules as they are allows people to have the choice to have these clearer, higher risk births in a community setting, but also ensures, or we try to ensure that they're going to get all of the information. And I feel like the more informed the decision is, the better people can exercise their autonomy.
That's exactly correct.
That's sort of the frame that I'm coming from.
Right.
And I do think it kind of sucks to have to consult with someone who does cesareans for this every time, but I also think that it seems like a compromise to me to continue to be able to do these births and make sure that people get the information. And midwives are already, going the extra mile to do these births for people. And
we know that these births are associated with, we know that the births are associated with higher morbidities. I mean, that's clear from the community midwife data, right? As much problem that you have, the best data that we have suggests that all of these births are associated with significantly greater relative morbidities.
Right, and another side of that, community birth also has a lot higher success rate for having vaginal birth in these cases. So I think that what we've done is sort of hold those two things that are true at the same time and honor them both.
Well, and they will continue to be. They'll continue to be better if we're able to adequately, give information to people. And I agree. If a patient hears everything and continues down a path, that is their true choice. And if they make a decision that they will never turn around and say, I didn't understand that, then, that's their choice. That's okay. I think we also had public comments regarding a woman that said that she felt that she had a successful, outcome because she had a doctor telling her what the risks were and was prepared and delivered in the hospital, right? That was a second public comment.
So this is Sylvie.
Yeah, I'm a little
It's so funny. Everybody be all quiet, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to talk all at the same time. So I'll be quiet. Who was trying to talk?
I was Meredith, yeah. Go ahead, Meredith. I went first last time.
Okay. I was just going to, since Wendy was on the phone, to hear the public comment. There was also distinct from just being able to educate someone or identify what the risks are so that they can make a choice. The question is, which midwives are also committed to and able to do. The issue was whether you're, I think the way that we're thinking about it is to make sure that the consult with, a surgeon in case a surgery was necessary. But the question is, but the problem that was brought up was we're asking for a consult from a surgeon who doesn't necessarily have experience with normal physiologic birth, which is what these clients are after. So why would that be the experts that you're consulting with when you're discussing how you're going to have a physiologic vaginal birth at home after one C-section, and why would the midwife not be adequately able to disclose the risks to that client?
It's not the risk of the normal physiologic birth. It's the risk of a C-section after an unsuccessful physiologic birth, which certainly happens. Correct? I mean,
right.
Not every patient that attempts a trial of labor at home has a successful physiologic birth. And the risks that are associated with surgery after a trial of labor with an unsuccessful attempt at physiologic birth is much riskier than an elective repeat C-section. And so allowing a patient to understand the risk factors that may go into her ability to have a successful physiologic birth is very, very important. And a doctor, despite what you're saying, can assess that and help a patient to understand it as well. And then they also, on top of it, can add in the surgical risk, which cannot be fully explained by a person that doesn't do the procedure.
This is Chelsea, and I agree with what Wendy is saying, that the purpose of this consult is to help people understand that they can have a repeat planned cesarean or a planned cesarean in the case of the breech of the twins, and to understand what those risks and benefits are. And I'm never going to try to say that a physician who does cesareans is an expert on community birth and physiological birth, and that's why the midwife is still responsible for choosing whether that's an acceptable client for community birth. So just because, and that's where people don't have to do what the consulting physician tells them to.
Absolutely.
In our rules to document, like, this is what the consult said, this is what the midwife is saying, this is what the client wants, and this is why. Because, the consulting provider is almost never an expert in home birth or birth center birth, and we're not asking them to be. And so one of the points in public comment was that it's silly to ask midwives, or I think the word was ludicrous. It's ludicrous to ask midwives to consult with physicians because they're not experts on physiologic birth, and it would be seen as ludicrous if OBs had to consult with midwives before they did cesareans, which I would actually love to see OBs have to consult with midwives on all of their low-risk patients, but that's not our jurisdiction, and so, we can only control what we can control. And so it's important to remember what everybody is the expert in and to try to utilize all of the expertise in the best ways to serve our clients.
Yeah, and I mean, just as it would be irresponsible for a community midwife to say to a client, you absolutely should have a trial of labor, this is awesome, this is fabulous, I don't care that your last baby was 12 and a half pounds, had a, you bled 300, and you pushed for 6 hours, and what, and then you should do that. Just as
Wendy wants this one.
So Wendy, you totally are like quiet. There you go. Wendy, you still there? You're really, really quiet, so I don't know if you're like, you sound like you're in a tunnel. So I don't know.
Oh, okay.
There you
Sorry.
go.
I'll stop talking. I'll stop talking, but my feeling is that just as Kelsey said, we utilize experts for their expertise. A patient can hear what they want to hear from a provider with expertise. You have your expertise in physiologic birth. We have our expertise maybe in surgical birth. and want to give all the information that they can. And just as women can choose to have a primary repeat elective repeat C-section, they can say, no, I'm going to have my elective TOLAC, right? But hearing the information allows for true autonomous choice, and that is important. How do you send somebody for something you don't do?
Right. This is Kelsey, and I would really love to hear from some of the other members, especially some of our newer members. Lynette, now that you've had kind of a recap, and hopefully Meredith, Mance, that we've brought you up to speed a little bit, I would love to hear you weigh in. I mean, of course, anyone else also. I just want to give some space to the voices we haven't heard.
This is Lynette, and I agree with the intent, and I have some concerns about the actual implementation and logistics of it. And I also feel like my understanding of the evidence supports a difference between one C-section and multiple C-sections.
This is Meredith Mance. I agree with what Lynette just added, that I think the intent I am absolutely on board on, and having that opportunity for true informed consent, I agree, is absolutely vital to that process. I do also agree that kind of the difference in evidence between 1 versus 2, and do want to acknowledge, like what Wendy was saying, is absolutely true as well, that the reason for the initial cesarean absolutely changes the risk status for people. My bigger concern is in alignment with what Lynette said, but just the practical implementation of it. I think I'm a little concerned about kind of the burden on our consulting providers, and all midwives across the state being able to have those same relationships that some of us, like in more urban areas, are lucky enough to have. And I know we talked about being able to call different ones, but there's no way to kind of guarantee that that's going to work for them, that those consulting providers will take those calls even. So I guess I'm a little worried about that aspect of it, above call. But I do understand the intent and kind of agree with that part.
Because at this point, when we're discussing something like this in the rules, I always ask Wendy if she'd be willing to take every consult of mine for somebody who's only had one cesarean.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Because, my concern is, if you have, let's say, a midwife in a rural area with not many provider options close by, sure, we have the potential for them to call and do a phone consultation, but what's to say that, an OB in Portland is going to be willing to talk to that midwife from Sisters that they never met before, And I do want to foster those relationships across the state. I think that's really important. I'm just worried that it may be punitive in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. So is there some momentum for changing this to 2 cesareans without the previous vaginal birth requires a consult and not just 1?
I'm curious what data you're talking about. The risk of rupture with 2 is not, statistically increased, to a level that we considered clinically significant, and then the same with 3, as much as I tried to look for it. So what is the
one of the evidence-based things that seems more prevalent to me and more considering than rupture is abnormal placentation, which goes up dramatically after 2 than just 1.
But not statistically significantly. So that doesn't statistically significantly go up until after 4. So, but that's also something that can be taken into account by a midwife, right? I'm sorry, I am exhausted, but I I guess I don't agree with that data. My recall of data regarding abnormal placentation is a statistical significant increase with 4 C-sections.
I mean, that was probably a long time ago that we were looking at that data, when this was initially, when these rules were initially open. So I don't know if we need to look at that again or if that doesn't change anybody's commitment to this rule.
So this is Sylvie. You guys have a bunch of options. So remember, this is proposed rules. So one of the things that you could do is that you could allow the public to comment on those statistics and comment on the 1 versus 2 change, because you could always change out the 1. We're talking about 16B. Remove the 1 when you do vote on permanent rules, because that's making something less instead of adding something in. And then the other thing too is between now and when you vote on permanent rules in September, we can accumulate more of that same data to where that talks about the difference between 1 and 2, and then everybody can review the new data and feel comfortable voting on whether or not you want 1 and 2 or just 2.
Okay, that seems like maybe that's what we need to do. Then.
Wendy, would you feel comfortable with that? Oh man, Wendy, are you not on?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Wendy, would you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, sure. I'll gather up my data, but I guess I hate. It's discouraging to turn around and have to do this all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating and discouraging, and
So Wendy, this is Sylvie. I understand that, but you also have to understand that Meredith Mance, Lynette Pettibone, and Christine Morales they're newer to the board, so they don't necessarily remember those same conversations. So it's more of them, because they're the ones now who have to vote on permanent rules, and kind of get them up to speed on what you were looking at, what your decisions were, and what the board, and I get that it feels like you're rehashing everything that you hashed out before, but that's the downfall of it taking so long to get the rules to go permanent. So
it's a problem.
A lot of these were compromises too.
And a lot of, Sammy just said, a lot of these were compromises, and and there was different people on the board then. So I think, we'll leave it, as long as you guys feel comfortable with it, we'll leave it as 1 and 2. It obviously is going to be a focus of public comment because people have concerns with it. But then we can have at our next board meeting, we can have a discussion about the statistics, and we can make sure that Sammy puts that on his agenda, and we'll have that conversation on August 20th.
Okay, do you have all the, can you somehow list the references that we have, or should I just go back and pull again? That can be easier?
No, Wendy, this is Sylvie. Don't do anything unless you have new research. We have everything, so, because we obviously have to save everything. So we already have it. Sammy already has it. She can get it out to board members for review. And then she can add it to the bottom of the rule. Remember how we had all the references in the rule schedule? So that people can see what we're referencing. So we'll add it back to that. And then people can make comments on, in reading in the statistics, here's what I found, or whatever. So everybody's all on the same page of what we're looking at.
Okay.
So just to recap, is this becoming open to public comment now, and then we're talking about everything in August? So that we'll be looking at data, and we're also collecting public comment. It seems like we're pulling out the VBAC, again, to kind of hold. I just want to be clear, for myself and on the record, like what's the exact plan?
So this is Sylvie. My understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So my understanding is you're going to vote to approve the rules the way that they're written today, knowing full well that 16B, which is talks about 1 or 2 cesarean sections without a previous successful vaginal birth, you must consult with a physician who provides cesarean delivery. That the concerns or comments are going to be about whether or not it should just be 2, but we're going to leave 1 in there for now, to allow for the public comment and allow for you guys then to re-review all the research that was reviewed previously, and then you can discuss that research at the next board meeting, which is August 20th. And then you're also going to be getting public comment about this rule that you will then have to talk about all your research, all the public comment and all that stuff at the September 24th meeting.
Okay.
Do I have that correct? Is everybody on that same page, or is it just me?
I mean, it seems like if we had enough significant dissent, we could not vote today and just continue deliberating. But I don't know if we have that.
And this is Sylvia, you're welcome to do that. It slows the process down so that if you do not vote on proposed rules today, then the earliest you could vote on them would be the 20th. And so, but we can do that because we can push everything out. You would then vote on proposed rules on August 20th. And between now and then, we can send you the research and you can have the conversation about the research on August 20th. And then decide whether you want to change it from 1 or 2 to just 2.
Yeah, this is Kelsey. I'm not particularly in favor of that option. I just wanted others to know that it was an option, that we don't have to vote today.
You're correct, yes.
So, Meredith, sorry, just being new. Just want to make sure I understand this, because it sounds to me that even if we do vote on the proposed rules and approve them and keep moving forward and go over research, we still have the opportunity to have this conversation again. So I feel like that, am I understanding that all correctly? There's
yeah, we absolutely will. Yeah, once we propose the rules, then there's a public comment period, and then we are legally obligated to consider all of the public comments, so we have to talk about this again with the public.
Then I would feel comfortable moving forward and not slowing down the process, because we're still including all of that as we move forward.
That's okay.
But doesn't it slow the process down anyways at some point? If we after the public comment, so say we propose them today, then we're looking at research, then we're looking at public comment, then we're in September, and we're saying, and then we don't agree on the VBAC and we want to change it to where it only says 2 and 3, then now are we looking at another waiting period for voting, or do we then?
It depends on how much we change it. It depends on if we change it and how much.
So this is, Sylvie, the other thing too is you got to remember you do not all have to agree. You do have to vote, and you have to take a vote, but there's an odd number of individuals who is on the board, and even if it passes by 1, it passes. So this is, and I know that Meredith, the new Meredith, Lynette and Christine were not maybe not have been on the board when I think Christine was, but Lynette, you obviously weren't, and neither was the new Meredith. Which is where some of the concerns and why we're addressing this again is because you take an individual vote, yay or nay, and when you do that, and if it does not pass, then you have to readdress it. So even if you guys don't all agree, but you vote on it and more than half of you agree, then it passes. Does that make sense? It doesn't have to be unanimous.
Yeah. I get it. I mean, I guess it's Wendy. It's frustrating because their counterparts were in agreement, and I know there are new people, but I think the person that was in the role had agreed to this, and I feel like there has to be some sort of end. I mean, it's just unfortunate because then my position is going to end, and we could be in the same position again when a new person comes on to I need to do this, and I think it came together, 2 at once. Yeah,
and Wendy's correct. I mean, you guys have, that's part of the role of the office is to obviously, you know, you guys are on split terms, so you don't all get on the board at the same time. You don't all expire at the same time. And we try to make sure that those positions are filled. But if Wendy's term gets up and she does not continue serving, then you have a vacant spot until it gets filled, and you have to have somebody who's willing to do that. So, but that's the downfall of keep postponing this. So even if you don't agree on September 24th, you can still at least take a vote, and if it passes, it moves forward. If you continue to not move forward, then there continues to be an evolving, trying to get somebody caught up and trying to get new opinions involved in the conversations.
So is there anyone who is uncomfortable with moving forward and putting out the proposed rules for public comment?
Wait, this is Beth. I'm sorry, I've lost the thread. So are we proposing tabling this and looking at more research and kind of readdressing the VBAC issue? Is that what the current proposal is?
Or just keeping the rules, voting on them, this was Christine, sorry, and going forward, getting public comment, and then deciding
whether or not we're going to
significantly change.
Which I think that seems in hopes of keeping things moving, I think that seems what I would want. But.
So this is Heather. If the board is potentially considering, after its research and its public comment, changing 16B to just state 2 cesarean sections without previous successful vaginal birth, consult must be with the physician who provides cesarean delivery. Then, to help the process move forward, the board, if that might be a way that it goes, would want to put the public on notice in order to get all public comment on that possible language as well. And then that way you could consider all the public comment and be in a position where you feel that you've received comments on both the language as it's proposed on page 6 currently, as well as what you may change it to. And that could be made clear in the rulemaking notice that Sammy puts out. And you could also have that draft possible language if the board agrees that that would be how it's stated, so that the public is aware.
This is Meredith Klein. I mean, it seems like that might be good to have it out there so that we don't have to delay like deliberating and voting if this is what if several people agreed or were wanting to take it out and just have it be on 2 and 3. Then in September we don't have to start again with another public comment, right, related to changing the rule to that if there was any interest. I feel like maybe the more efficient thing to do.
Well, this is Kelsey, and I think that there's 2 different things that we're talking about, because there's the question of whether if someone's had 1 cesarean without a successful vaginal birth, if they need to consult, and there's the question of if they need to consult, does it have to be with a physician?
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask? Sorry. What is the rule current? Like the old, I just don't remember what the previous rule was. Like what was the concept?
So if you're looking at it, the part in bold is the new part, and so the specificity around the consult has to be with the physician who provides cesarean delivery is the new part. So the new part is who you consult with, not what you have to consult for. And if it isn't specified, then midwives are free to consult with other licensed providers that include other licensed midwives or naturopaths or CNM, family practice docs, etc.
But a consult has to be done at this point. Like the rules currently, there has to be some sort of consult.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yes. But like one of our public commenters said, like she was able to do that consult with a CNM, the way that it currently stands.
So it already says 1 or 2 cesareans without a previous successful vaginal birth. So it's not separated out between 1 or 2 because there's not a statistically significant difference. And that's what we're going to confirm by looking at the research between now and next time with all the members of the board currently.
I sort of think that we should just vote on it as it is and not try to guess what all the public comment will be. We've heard some today, but some of the written comment we have goes the other direction. So I think that it might make the most sense to just vote on it as it is and then see what happens with all the public comments.
Yeah, in the interest of moving forward.
Yeah.
That seems fine. Does anybody disagree with that?
I do have one tiny thing to make to a different part, but it's really nitpicky, and I apologize for that. Where we had said gestational diabetes requiring oral meds or insulin, I think we should just change meds to medications.
What page?
For consistency.
Yeah, where are you at, Kelsey?
That's in the indication to transfer antepartum, letter Q. So it's 10Q.
So you want it to say gestational diabetes requiring...
Oh, I had slang. Medication. Got it.
Requiring oral medications or insulin?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't like the abbreviation for medication? Meds? Got it.
I get it. We just didn't use it anywhere else in the document, and we used the whole word medication, so.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. We love that you catch stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone? Changes? And again, these are all ones that were approved already, right?
Yeah.
You already voted on them.
So if nobody has any more questions, comments, concerns, or wants to talk about the rules, you do need a motion and a second to adopt proposed rules to get the schedule started.
I have a question.
Sure.
I shouldn't ask this, but we had an event. I mean, this is coming from an event that I have to be honest, I never could have foreseen as being considered appropriate management. And honestly, our rules don't address it anywhere. And it made me very uncomfortable that our rule wasn't addressing this. And I mean, what I did with the event was to talk about it with Colleen, who, you know, is a midwife I respect, and just sort of ask, am I crazy here? And I turned it in for a peer review, so it'll be evaluated. But I feel like it's a piece of our rules that just is missing as good medicine. And I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I talked to Colleen a little bit about it because I just said, I don't know what to do with this concern. And she said, well, you can bring it up to the board if somebody is interested in trying to formulate something around. But
can you say it? I'm sorry, I missed the very first part of that. Can you say what risk factor you're concerned about?
I didn't say what it is. I mean, is it okay to talk about this here or not?
If you have something, a particular risk factor that you're concerned about, I think that's a policy discussion, and that this is the right place to talk about it.
Okay. I mean, we had a woman who was transferred in after 5 days of rupture, and I think there's nothing, we don't say anything around time of rupture.
And yeah, that's a discussion that we've had before, and the evidence is really just kind of mixed on it. But some of the evidence
right,
is that it has more to do with the number of vaginal exams than the actual time.
I guess I disagree on that. I mean, I guess my feeling of the data, I guess the obstetrical literature certainly shows an increase in risk of time alone that doesn't take vaginal exams into account. And I feel like there's a discrepancy in the data.
But there is, I think that maybe that's why we don't have a rule around it, because there are discrepancies, and there is some good data that suggests that there's no evidence of increased risk of infection up to 96 hours if you separate the time from the number of exams, and that it's 4 or more exams after rupture that significantly increases the risk of infection.
Kelsey, can you send me that? Because I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's already in.
I don't think I've seen that.
That's the term prompt study by Hannah et al. I have it too.
You have it? There you go.
Yes.
What did you say?
What did you say? Can you email it? So everybody, I just wanted to clarify, I know that Wendy keeps asking for something. Do not email Wendy anything. Please email Sammy. Don't email each other at all. Remember, you were on a board. Do not communicate about board business.
I don't know anybody's email.
Okay. Email it to Sammy. Sammy then can email it out to everybody and include it in her packet of all the umpteen million different research projects that you guys have had us look at. But that's how you do something. If you want somebody to look at something, board member wise, send it to Sammy. Sammy then will send it out to everybody so that we don't get any accidental communication between board members.
Yeah, Wendy, I just remembered another part of the discussion that we had is that we already have invitations to transfer for the things surrounding rupture of membrane.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we have fetal distress and we have chorioamnionitis. We sort of covered the basis of the problem with prolonged rupture without trying to set a time limit on the rupture itself.
I do recall discussions. I know we've considered it because I know it's been sort of a little thorn in my side. I think this case also brought up me a concern regarding likelihood of onset of spontaneous labor after a time. Describe it as this is a woman who, did not go into labor 5 days after rupture, eventually spiked the temperature, but when, wasn't at a level where, she needed a C-section, but we tried to get her into labor. Her uterus was so dysfunctional at that point because she eventually spiked a really high temperature and became very infected very quickly. And, had she, her uterus was not functional. And I think it just brought a very important point of, this was a woman who likely could have delivered vaginally had she come in before 5 days, with no labor. And it was just, it was frustrating because, we don't have a lot of, I don't know, maybe you have more experience of people hanging out for 96 hours or that much, time and see them go into labor and fine. I guess that is not my lived experience. So I'm curious what the data is around that because everyone I see with these situations has a very dysfunctional uterus and gets sick. So
I think that might be one of your things where we can't legislate common sense.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I understand that. I agree. Fine.
Maybe that's something we could put on a watch list if more evidence comes out.
Right, and I'm fine putting it in through peer review and having you talk about it. I guess I would just like to be familiar with your literature on that, because I'm not, so it'd be great, because I'll read it and see, and I know my literature, and so sure. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up as a concern.
Thanks, Wendy. So this is Sylvie. I need to clarify, because you guys have talked quite a bit about a bunch of different things. On 16B, when it says 1 or 2 cesareans, are you guys still determining whether or not you want to have the 1 included, or are you only determining if you want the consult to be with a physician who does cesarean deliveries?
We are just moving for, sorry, this is Christine, to vote to approve them and waiting for public as is, and then getting public comment.
Right.
Okay, so there is a potential that you may take out the 1.
Or that we may take out the other part. Like, there's not, or that we'll leave it the same. I think there's too many possibilities depending on what is submitted for public comment. So,
yeah, personally, I feel like
questioning to just keep it and move forward.
Okay.
This is Mance. I feel like we would get more information from public comment if we leave it as is. Because if we change it, and then we kind of lose a lot of the comments that we might have gotten otherwise that we might find valuable. So I kind of feel like leaving it as is going to give us an opportunity to hear what we need to hear, one way or the other.
Okay.
I agree with Meredith.
Perfect. Okay, so I think, this is Sylvie again, I think what I'm going to have Sammy do is then when she does say, hey, we're opening rules or for public comment, blah, 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 and then what I think that she can do is put some sort of sentence or some sort of, get it on their mindset that you are very specifically want them to look at all the rules. I'm not saying not to look at the other part, but then you're also very specifically want them to look at and comment on 16B, which is the 1, 2 cesarean. I mean, you want them to comment on everything, but then you really want some clear comment on B, whether or not it should be 1 and 2, or it should just be 2, or it should have to where it has to be a physician with cesarean delivery. Will that help you guys, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Do we really need to point people in a direction?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all.
And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like pointing people in a direction. I mean, you know who provides public comment, and I feel like pointing people in a direction is asking for, an overabundance of one-sided concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you tell me what you want me to do.
I can work some magic in words in the notice. That doesn't really point it out, but points it out. Word magic.
Yeah, and we don't want them to just focus on 1 because we want to make sure that they read it all and have any comments on anything that has changed. So, I mean, I get that, but I didn't know if you guys wanted specific comments regarding 16B or not.
Not necessarily.
I think
Go ahead.
I think the people that are, watching this process and are aware of those, are already aware of it.
Okay.
And are already, making comments.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's necessary to specifically say we want comments on this, because technically we want comments on all of it, and I do think that Wendy's right in that capacity of not kind of influencing one way or the other, just getting comments.
Okay.
So are we ready to move on from this part?
This is Sylvie. If you're ready to move on, somebody needs to make a motion to adopt proposed rule.
I can't do that.
This is Wendy. This is Wendy, and I make the motion to adopt proposed.
This is Kelsey. I'll second.
So I heard Kelsey first on the second part.
Okay, so let's vote on it. Beth Iva.
Aye.
Kelsey Fisher.
Aye.
Christine Morales.
Aye.
Lynette Pettibone.
Aye.
Meredith Mance.
Aye.
Wendy Smith. Did you just say aye?
I did not say aye, because this is all of them together, correct, and none of them separate.
Correct.
Yep. Correct.
And so it's either aye or no.
Yeah, so you're voting on the rules that were submitted. You guys had made no changes. You've talked about it, but no changes. So what Sammy sent you is that exact wording, no changes other than meds to medication.
Okay, aye.
And Meredith Klein, aye.
Motion carries. We are, so you just did item number 10, so we are on item number 11. And I don't know, let me do a quick status check. So for non-board members, whom is on the phone, and remember to unmute your phone if you're going to talk. So is Hermione still on the phone? Tia, are you on the phone? Celeste, are you on the phone?
I am on the phone, but I have no further public comment.
Okay, perfect. Is there anybody else from the public who is on the phone that I did not mention?
Alyssa Merritt, but I do not have public comment.
Okay, thanks, Alyssa. So Celeste and Alyssa, I don't know if you heard me earlier or not, but can you send just a real quick email to Sammy that says I was on the phone for the DEMS board meeting? We just have to keep record of whom was in attendance.
Sure.
Awesome, thanks you guys. So if there's no comment for 11, we're on to items number 12, which is other board business. And so, Wendy, you had mentioned a couple things. I don't know if you want to talk about them anymore. One of the things that we will make sure to do is Sammy's going to send out some more information that we already have on the cesarean stuff. And then if anybody has any research they want distributed, make sure and email that to Sammy. We'll make sure that on the January board meeting, we have a discussion regarding statistics and how that is going. What are some of our options? Anything else that anybody wants to talk about?
I think that we had also, this is Kelsey, we had also wanted to have a discussion about cases and investigations and sort of the pace that they happen at. If there's just any information that the office can give us, you know, in the reports we can see that there's a lot of, when we have those reports about the bienniums and how many complaints are made and resolved, and that we still have some lingering cases that are really old, and just kind of wanting a general update on why things take so long and if there's anything that we can do to improve the expediency of this process.
100%. So I'm going to give a big picture of kind of where the office is. This will kind of help everybody a little bit understand where we're currently at. So due to the pandemic, there's a lot, as obviously everybody knows, there's a lot of changes that occurred. One of the things is the governor has shut state offices down. So we are shut down until August 31st, which means that we are now not open to the public by appointment only. It also means that everyone who is able needs to work from home, which really limits what we can and can't do. The other thing is with the pandemic and all the businesses shutting down, it is, if any of you watch the news, it is put the legislation into panic mode around budgets because people aren't working. They're paying out money to help support people who aren't working, which also means that way more money is going out than revenue is coming in. That being said, we are not allowed to hire anybody. So when we have a position that's vacant, we're not allowed to replace that person. It has to stay vacant. So now you have to where Bob has several positions that are now vacant because we have not been able to fill them. So there's one of the issues. The other issue is, for Bob specific, is that we have had some turnover in the subject matter experts. We do now have a great person who's on board. However, she needs to get caught up to speed. And there's only so many cases she can review at once. And so those are the major things that is causing some issues with us right now. The other thing is that we also, when we are, quote, closed to the public, we cannot allow people to come in here without appointments and without making certain things work. Because if you walk into our building on a normal day, there's usually about 7 people here, when we're normally at 33. So those are some of the issues. I'm not trying to make excuses on why things are taking too long, because that only started occurring in March. But prior to that, we obviously had some turnover. If you remember, Nathan was the investigator, and then it got switched over to Scott. And the other thing too is that, you guys are one of 16. And so we have 16 boards and programs we're trying to do investigations on. And only, 4 investigators at the moment?
5.
So I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's some of it. And I think there's a couple cases that we did have, and I think that this is why some of them are so not being addressed, is there was a couple people that we were having a really hard time getting a hold of, and then there was also an issue on determining whether or not that now that they're a traditional midwife, if there's anything we can hold them accountable for when they were licensed, but they don't have a license now. So I think those are the things that I can remember, then why things got slowed down. But Bob's sitting here next to me, and he can give a little input too.
Hi, this is Bob. So I just, after the question came up, I had Nathan, who's our IT guy in-house now, run some quick numbers for me. And so you have a better picture of what we contend with is in the current year, we have, with all of our boards, 410 cases open and actively being worked. And over the past 3 years, we've had over 1,300 cases opened and worked. And that's with 4 to 5 investigators at a time. Scott is relatively new, but he's an experienced investigator. He came on and I assigned him 125 cases, and now between him and Trampas, they are running over 60 cases apiece average. And that goes for the same with the other investigators as well. And as an investigator myself, 20 cases in a year to be running is about what a professional investigator would be able to work effectively with a sustained number of 20. So these guys are inundated with work, and again, like Sylvie caveated a couple of times, we don't want to make excuses. We don't want this to be the excuse, but these are the numbers that we are working with, and I won't disagree that a case that was brought to us in 2016 is still open, but we will definitely get the older ones put to rest and get them in front. We'll get them in front of you and get them put to rest.
There's some background noise. Is there someone that could mute themselves while they're not talking?
Yeah, this is Sylvia. It sounds like somebody's doing dishes. Kelsey, is that what you were, did that help answer your concerns, or do you have more questions?
I think that was pretty clear. Thank you for working 3 times harder than is ideal. And I do appreciate that clarity. It's, I think it's hard for us as board members. This is, for some of us, the only board we're on. And
sure.
Not realizing that you have so many other licensees that you're also having to do
this is Bob.
Investigations for. So
Yeah,
thanks for that clarity on your situation and just what's possible.
Absolutely, and we do get the same questions from other boards where we have some old cases out there, and the guys and the gals spend a good part of their day prioritizing and reprioritizing as information and data comes to them. So, yeah, I mean, it's a big project for them, but these older cases, we can sit down and between Trappist, myself, and Scott, put our collective minds together and see what we can do and to get them in front of you.
Oh, that reminds me of one more question that I have. And it's for the cases that we end up just closing, and like nothing happens with them, we don't issue a notice or anything. Are those licensees notified that that investigation on them is closed and completed?
Good question. Sometimes is the best answer. Well, it's not the best, but it is the answer. If we don't contact them, then the investigator may or may not notify them that there was even a case.
So this is Sylvia. To clarify that, for one, when we're in executive session and you guys give us direction on a case, sometimes they don't even know, they meaning the licensee, don't even know that there is a case. So if you have us close it, then we wouldn't contact them. If they know that they have a case and we've done this whole investigation and interviewed them and all that kind of stuff, and you guys tell us to close it, then yes, we notify them and say it's done. We're no longer, the board has chosen to close your case, blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's why he said,
Is there
yeah.
any way for people who know that they have an active investigation to contact the office and get an update on what their status is? I can't imagine having an investigator ask for records and then it's 2 years later and nothing has happened and just having that hanging over.
Yeah. So all of them who know that they're under investigation have our contact information. They're always welcome to call Bob anytime. Bob's name's all over our website. His phone number's on our website. None of it's a secret. But they're welcome to contact him anytime. But as soon as they're under investigation and know that they're under investigation, they get a letter that says, here's how you contact us, please, with any comments, questions, concerns, kind of thing. So yes, they should know how to contact us.
And they know what the allegations are and who the investigator is. But yeah, I've had folks contact asking if their case is still open or closed, and basically all I can tell them is yes. And if they want a status, I tell them I'm not the person. I turn it over to the investigator, and we typically don't give them a status. The investigator will call them and just let them know that they'll be contacting them or they'll receive something from us. But it's pretty difficult to conduct an investigation while the respondent is calling and asking for an update and where we're at. So we handle it with kid gloves. We don't make it, nothing's a secret. If somebody is under investigation, we got an active investigation and we're collecting records, they are notified, and they are notified of what the allegation is.
This is Lynette, and I did have one other question as well. I was curious if there was any more information you could give us on how cases were prioritized, particularly prior to the pandemic. Again, some of these cases are super old, and
right.
I'm wondering if there's systems changes that we could be implementing to try and be helpful.
We work on it regularly. I have meetings with the investigators to find out where they are on any particular case. As board meetings are coming up, we sit down and we discuss where we are with the case, if it could be brought to the board at the upcoming board meeting. And again, it's always a moving target. We're for your board specifically, we're waiting for records. We're waiting for other reports from an SME, or we're having trouble getting in touch with somebody. But our goal is to get them closed as soon as possible. And granted, with the sheer number of complaints that we get, unfortunately, some get moved to the back of the pile as we prioritize it. How to prioritize them is what's the immediate danger to any a particular client or the public is probably the best way, and then we work back from there and to prioritize them. But I can't give you any specifics on any cases, but it's we used to have for the new board members and maybe even the current board members, we used to have a 24-step protocol. Well, we've whittled that thing way down to getting the individual, the respondent notified, getting records moving, and we try to figure out better ways to streamline our process as long as we're within statutes and rules. And sometimes that's not a problem, but we have to stay within those particular statutory requirements. And again, I don't want to make an excuse. This is an old case. It was assigned to one investigator, now it's with another investigator, but we'll get it to you just as soon as we can. Anything else?
And to follow up to that, this is Lynette again. What is the SME paid, and is there a reason that we couldn't have a second SME on board to share some of the load?
Good questions. You can not to be mean, but we can tell you're new. So yes, we have a subject matter expert, and she is under contract. We have had several over the years. We would love to have like 5. That would be fabulous. It would totally help. For one, you have to have people who are willing to do it. For 2, you also have to have people who have never had a violation. And then the board will review those and recommend them. So they've done that in the past. But as of right now, we only have 1, which we used to have 3. One, she took some time off, and the other person quit doing it because she was going to go back to school. So if you know of somebody out there who would like to be a subject matter expert, send them our way. We would love to have them.
That is not on the board.
That is not on the board. You cannot be on the board and be a subject matter expert. Anything else from anyone? You guys are an awful quiet group today. So hopefully, Meredith Klein, you have somewhere on your scripts about adjourning.
I do. Have it right here.
Perfect.
Are we ready to do that? The Board of Direct Entry Midwifery meeting is adjourned at 11:44 a.m.